Hi, welcome to the coffee table. I'm Meena Malik Hussain, and today we're doing a little bit of naughtiness because we have someone on set with me today. I can't say I'm not entirely unhappy. But the thing is that this is a very intrepid woman that we are talking to and who deals with all sorts of heinous and terrible things in her quest for making lives of our children here in Pakistan safer and better. And I'm delighted to welcome on set two people who have been working tirelessly for the protection of children in Pakistan. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome, very excited, Sara Ahmed, who is the chairperson of the Child Protection and Welfare Bureau of Punjab and is also the spokesperson to the Punjab government on child rights, and Iftikhar Mubarak, who is the executive director of Search for Justice. Hello, welcome in person and not in person to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have both of you here. And may I first of all congratulate you on amazing work that is being done with the Bureau. And let's begin at the beginning. So the Bureau has been in action for many years now. It was set up in 2004.
Yes.
I have notes. I'd rather talk. So it was set up in 2004. Yes. And it does a lot of things. But what are the kind of main major things that the Bureau does?
Okay. So the Bureau has been in place since 2004, according to this act called the PDNC Act, which is the Punjab Destitute and Neglected Children's Act.
Okay.
So we have different sections within the Bureau, and this is the only Bureau which has a child protection court inside our own premises. We have a court so that we can take custodies of these children who are vulnerable and who are destitute and neglected. And other than this, we have a social section which rescues children. We have a helpline called 1121.
Yes, very important.
Yes, and thank you for having me over on your show because I can propagate about this helpline also.
Yes, it's 1121. So, wow. What circumstances would one call the helpline?
Okay, so if anybody, any citizen, any media person, anybody at all, encounters a case of child abuse or child domestic labor violence, somebody's employed and there's torture being done, then, or any child who's destitute, who's abandoned, and you see some street children living, you can always call on our helpline, and it will be our duty within Punjab to rescue that child. And so we have a bureau, and right now there are 800 children living in this bureau.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, and these children are destitute and neglected. They're abandoned. Some are orphans. So different criminal stories and their backgrounds, and they have nobody. So they're living, and we're not just providing them food and shelter, but also we're running a state-of-the-art school within the bureau.
Okay.
And so we're providing them education also. And I recently started a vocational training program with the Server Foundation, Hunarga, so that they can get some other skills also. Yeah. And so they even have extracurricular activities like sports and stuff. So we're present in 8 districts of Punjab.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so I was telling about the sections. So there's social section, there's this helpline section, there is psychological section, because of course we are dealing with street children and who have runaway tendencies. So we have to provide them counseling and stuff because they're always ready to run away, from the bureau.
Right. And the thing is that you can't address a lot of their problems without getting to the root of that. And I suppose that psychological counseling is really, in a way, the only way to do that, is to kind of understand why and how they're coping also. Even if you understand why it's happened, for example, poverty.
Yeah.
And your parents sold you to a begging gang. Which they exist. Begging gangs are real.
Yes.
And your parents kind of sell you into them. But you know why it happened. But then to deal with the trauma of that, you need psychological
That's true. And
counseling.
other than that, even we get children who've been abused sexually. So they are going through a lot of psychological disorders. So we need a psychologist to deal with that. So there's this psychological section which does this. Other than that, there's a family tracing section because we get a lot of missing children and we have to trace their families. So this is the basic structure of the bureau.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Well, I just want to ask Iftikhar Saab. So you work at Search for Justice and you're the executive director. So you know all about it. So tell us, what work does Search for Justice do?
So thank you very much, Meena, for having me in this very important program on very, very important issue.
Yes.
Search for Justice basically is a child rights focused organization, and the protection of children is our primary strategic area where we are working since 2014. So Search for Justice is mainly working in 4 broader areas. Number one, we are engaged in policy advocacy. It means we are working with parliamentarians, government officials, media, and other civil society organizations to push for the effective implementation of the laws, those who are enacted by the legislators. We also engaged in the capacity building of key stakeholders, again, like government officials, like media personnel, like other civil society actors. So, I mean, we all can work together with a clear understanding about the rights of children and what steps are required to ensure the protection of children.
So, Iftikhar, it says, because, I read your whole entire website, because, notes. I noticed that a lot of the work that Search for Justice does has to do with violence against children, and that takes many different forms. So can you tell us a little bit more about the different forms that violence takes?
Yeah, sure. Meena, I would just like to add one little thing.
Yes, of course.
Also, one of our key priority area is to engage children in actions for child protection.
Yes, that's so important.
We directly work with groups of children. So, I mean, to empower them, to provide them adequate information, knowledge, and skills about their own protection. And after that, we also engage their parents and their teachers as well. So, because we believe that it is the right of every child to be consulted, and because under the Article 12 of UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is the right of every child to form his or her views and express them freely about the matters concerning with them. So,
that is so important. That is so important.
Yes,
that the United Nations has recognized a child's right to think for themselves and to make decisions about their body and about their lives and about what they want. I think that's really, really important and very exciting also. How do you find it, sort of, when you work with children and sort of the idea that they can be advocates for their own rights? It must be a really rewarding experience.
I mean, this is very important to, and it's like our experience to work with children was more than amazing. It's always very amazing. When you talk with children, you work with children, so children will come up with such smart and intelligent solutions that, I mean, those solutions are also like very useful and helpful for us as adults and experts. So, I mean, so it is our experience is always very, very much amazing. And I would just like to share one little example of this amazingness is one of our child, he participated in a global forum, which was held in 2018, arranged by UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. And the same child was also represented Pakistan in last year in November 2019 in Geneva. Because last year, that was the 30th anniversary of UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And, we also provided children the opportunity to, first, what we do, what our strategy is, like we work with small groups of children. We provide them all possible information about their rights, about the protection, the laws available in Pakistan. And then we provide them opportunity to interact with the decision makers and the policy makers. So children can directly share their concerns with the people, those who are ultimately responsible to address those issues. Like our children had meetings with several ministers. They had meeting with the representative of a leading national political party. Our children, they arranged a press conference in Lahore Press Club on International Day of the Children.
That's fantastic. And what's the sort of average age range of children that Search for Justice works with?
Usually between the age of like 11 to 17. 11 to 17.
So they're slightly older.
Yes, exactly.
That's fantastic. And so, Sara, what age on average does the Bureau kind of receive for children?
So we have children starting from infants till 18 years. Yeah, as per our law. We get infants who are thrown in the garbage trucks by parents who don't want to keep them. So we go and get them, and we have a nursery where we keep children, and we give them for adoption. It's called temporary custody as per the Child Protection Code. So we get deserving parents, we interview them, there's a full process, and then we give these infants. The people are more inclined towards adopting infants,
Quite right, so, for adoption. But this is also one of the things that the Child Protection Bureau does.
That's true, yes.
Wow. Sometimes when you think about it in these kind of terms, it seems so shocking that somebody would throw a baby in the trash, but at the same time you have so many, like ED for example, and they have those cradles where you can leave your children there. Yeah, but the only uniqueness about the Bureau is that we ourselves go in the field and rescue the child. Otherwise, the NGO is working where people can come and drop children.
but we get calls from police stations sometimes, from hospitals where children, because when right after birth, some parents don't want to keep, especially a girl child. You know how our society is. So we go and get the child from there, yes. And once, I'll just quote an example. We got a child who was left in Pindi in a garbage truck. He didn't have a nose. His nose was apparently bitten by a dog. So then we got 2 surgeries done with the help of government. And then now, alhamdulillah, he's doing so well. He's such a fun-loving baby. And 1 more surgery is left, plastic surgery, which would, you know, I mean, there's no nose, and they had to make this whole connection to fix it. So we come across lots of these stories. Yeah. And I think children are the assets. I mean, they're our future. They shape our nation. I don't understand how people can, you know, just get rid of their child like that. And it's very disturbing.
It really is. And it's a very somber note to take a break on, but we are going to take a break and come back in just 1 second. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking to Iftikhar Mubarak from Search for Justice and Sara Ahmed, who is the chairperson of the Child Protection Bureau in Punjab, about child welfare in Punjab specifically and generally in Pakistan. So, Sara, we were talking about abandoned children and children who are, you know, left on trash heaps or left in ED cradles or just sort of abandoned in hospitals. And one major part of, okay, well, that's the second question, but I think the main question that I want to ask is that why do you think parents are doing this?
Okay. So it's very unfortunate that these cases come about and these things are happening, and very often they're happening. The reason what I see behind this is lack of education, that plus awareness. People don't have awareness that what they're doing is actually a huge crime. Even when they commit abuse that destroys somebody's future, they don't realize this and they just do it for their own desire. And when parents easily leave their children on the streets and at the hospitals, they don't know that that child is their responsibility, and they should have thought before planning the child or whatever, you know. So basically, lack of education and awareness leads to all of this, and this cannot be changed overnight. You also know it will take time. If it will take time to fix this issue, if we start reforms now, over the next few years, inshallah, we would be able to see some positive results then.
And as with many things, it's also probably a very multi-layered, very complex thing where, for example, and you know, we've done shows on population control, for example, and a lot of people are, you know, have certain beliefs about that, but then they keep having these children who are unwanted, and then obviously they can't afford those children, they can't afford to feed them and clothe them, and then that's how they end up abandoned because they don't know what else to do.
True, that's right. Meena, you know what I identified as a problem was lack of awareness, as I mentioned. So we started this awareness campaign all across Punjab. The only reason was to give information to people about laws that are present, so that they have this fear of accountability, that if they do this, then this will happen to them. You know, they'll get this much punishment. So that, plus awareness about child domestic labor violence and child abuse. So I've gone myself also on the streets with my officers, with my team, to get this awareness, because even our Prime Minister and the Chief Minister of Punjab have this special focus, and they keep on telling me that create more awareness about the helpline also, about the laws also, about the punishments also, so that people, you know, they just refrain from doing this. Yeah, all these things.
Because there has to be a sort of system of checks and balances. And I think it's very promising that literally in, I think today or yesterday, there has officially, the government has decided to ban child domestic labor. So under the age of 14, if you hire somebody who's under 14, then that is going to be illegal. Now.
That's an amazing step, I think, that the government has taken, because we really need strict laws. And what was missing was these legislation, right? And now, so that now it's totally banned, so nobody can employ, because we saw that initially the laws were present, but since there was this doubt about the age also, and people used to employ, and then only if the maid would, you know, steal milk from the fridge. We saw recently that, you know,
a lot of really terrible things have happened.
Yes.
Now, Iftikhar, in your work with Search for Justice, child domestic labor is one of the issues that the organization deals with.
Number one, the experts call it the contemporary form of slavery. People say that the child domestic labor falls under the category of contemporary form of slavery. The reason behind this is, like, that is, yes, because, I mean, the children, they are working behind the closed doors, and you never knows what is happening behind the closed doors with them.
Yes.
And the unfortunate thing is, like, still since 2010, starting from the Shazia Masih case,
Yes.
Till date, like, I mean, roughly and very safely, I can say, like around 60 children have been murdered by their employers in result of the torture and violence committed by the employers. And
So the only,
unfortunate
and
thing
these are
is
the ones that we know about. These are only the ones that we know about.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, these are the only reported incidents. I mean, and the information is like flagged on television, printed or published in newspapers, or so these are only the reported incidents. But what is
Yes.
happening in actual, so no one knows. And on the average, like daily basis, or like after 2 days or 3 days, because Sarah is here and she can tell you more better that Child Protection and Welfare Bureau is regularly receiving the complaints from common people and the general public that they are witnessing a child is being beaten or being hurt or being tortured by his or her employer. And the unfortunate thing is, Meena, that the abusers, I would call them abusers,
Yes.
they are like, I mean, the majority is from the very educated class. So you can find number of people like doctors, like professors, like lawyers, like other like noble people of the society. They are like engaged in like beating the children
Yes.
and committing the violence against children, those who are working in their homes as the domestic helpers. So
Yes.
there is dire need, because right now under our legal framework, like if we talk about the Punjab, so no child under the age of 15 would be employed as per Punjab Domestic Workers Act 2019. But still there is dire need to increase the age of admission of children in domestic work from 15 to 18.
Absolutely.
Because in recent past, yes, because in recent past few years, that occupation has been emerged as very hazardous occupation for children.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
And other problem is, Meena, that unfortunately we don't have accurate figures available with us about the child domestic labor. It is very easy to collect the figures from the household, because
Yes.
sometimes it is considered as a private matter, sometimes it is considered as the matter of sanctity of the house, sometimes it is considered as the issue of chadar or char diwari. So
Yes.
I mean, all these barriers like contributing in not getting the actual numbers of child domestic laborers. So I think it again, I mean, it is the responsibility of the government tries to collect the numbers, because if we will be having the actual number, then it will be more easy for the government as well to develop their strategies, their programs, their plans, their projects to address the issues of child domestic workers and for their rehabilitation, for their welfare, for their betterment. And
Absolutely.
the other issue
Data is
like,
crucial.
yes, and the other issue is like there should be some sort of exemplary punishment for those who are employing the children, because current legal framework is just asked that if someone is employing the children below the age of 12, so there is possibility that the person will be awarded a punishment up to 1 month only, and if the age of the child is between 12 to 15, so there would be a fine between 10,000 to 50,000 Pakistani rupees.
Right.
So still, being a child rights activist, I believe that the punishment of this, I would say, the crime or the violation of the laws should be much stricter.
Yes.
So the people can avoid this practice to employing children for their domestic help.
I completely agree, because children are vulnerable. It's not the same as employing an adult. And you know, there is a conversation about the minimum wage, for example. But if you're employing an adult, they can engage with you on a more equal basis, and you can sort of negotiate your pay, you can choose to leave. You're an adult, you have power. But if you're 15, if you're 14, if you're 9,
That's
there's
right.
no way. And a lot of people say that, you know, justifications for keeping children for domestic work is that, you know, they have a home, they'll have food, and that it'll be a better life than being at home, and their parents need the money.
That's true. There was this, you know, we were just doing a survey in Lahore, and we saw some children on the streets, and we, you know, followed them to their house. So they were living in this really smelly, stinky area, downtrodden, and under a bridge they were living there. The children did not have clothes on, and they were of course used for begging. And they were very like 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And I went myself with my team. I said, why don't you give these children to us? I will keep them in the bureau. The government is coming to you themselves and asking you for them. They said no, because how they're our source of income. Are you going to pay us for that? Of course, we can't do that. We said at least we're providing them food and education, everything, and that's going to shape their future. But people have this mindset, and that as Iftikhar mentioned, there were 250 cases reported to us in the last 1 year.
And is this on the helpline? Like people call the helpline?
Yes, through the helpline.
That's very promising. I'm really pleased to hear that people use the helpline.
Because now they've started, getting to know about it, so now they're reporting on that. So these cases were of child domestic labor violence and abuse, both. Imagine, the number is so high. And so I'm sure there are so many cases which go unreported.
Yes.
And so to counter this, this is the first time that a government department and Search for Justice, a private NGO, partnered.
Yes, you have signed an MOU.
Yeah, we signed an MOU, and actually we signed MOUs with lots of people, but this is the first NGO that we've actually done something practically. We started this whole campaign which we're running on child domestic labor violence only. We're focusing just one issue. We put streamers in Lahore, in Punjab, and then we went on radio, we went together on shows, we released a documentary for social media to tell people about the laws, the age limits, that they're not supposed to employ underage, like children, young children, and the punishments and stuff. So this was the purpose, so that at least something, better can come out of this, and we can bring about some improvement.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's very important what Iftikhar said about how a lot of, quote unquote, educated people who should know better are perpetrating the system themselves.
It's shocking. The cases which come off from posh areas, educated areas, and we see doctors and stuff, professionals doing this to the employers. And I don't know what state of mind they're in, that they take out their frustration on the children, but it's very sad and upsetting.
It's quite right, because the way it sounds like, it's like children are being sort of pressured from both ends. So if their families are abandoning them, or their employers are abusing them, and then those poor little children, like, what is there for them? Like, where can they go? What can they do? And in the work that the Bureau does for rehabilitation, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, okay. So when we rescue a child who's gone through abuse or torture, whatever, we keep them, there are permanent children who are orphans. We keep them separate from them. So these newly rescued people, children, we have a separate room area for them, and we send our psychologists to rehabilitate them, to provide them counseling, so that like a case I myself also dealt with a girl who was raped, so she was very disturbed. She kept on crying. So for 10 days, she used to just cry, not eat anything. It was very sad and depressing. So our psychologists, and I personally also spent time with her. My director general also went, because we're female, so we thought she could connect more with us.
And she'd feel a little safer, maybe.
We would give them toys, and we would make them watch some cartoons or movies to just to change the environment, and just to make that child feel better.
Safe space.
Yes, and psychologists have regular sessions just to counter this issue. Yeah, this is what we do. And Iftikhar's point, I agree with that. Data should be there. That's true with the government. Right now, we don't have data of how many children are working where. Now, what happens is,
and it's also so fluid also, because somebody works someplace for 2 months, leaves, goes somewhere else, works there for a little while. So even if, for example, the census people were to come and ask, maybe it's not true after 5 months.
See, because we can only intervene when we get a call. We go, we get a search warrant, and then also, the employees are very reluctant in sharing information that an underage girl or boy is living with us. But because we have the warrant, we go, like, we get them outside, and then we talk to the child victim, whoever it is.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a very quick break here and come back to this very important conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking to Sara Ahmed and Iftikhar Mubarak about the work that they're doing for the protection of children in Pakistan, specifically with the focus on Punjab. So Iftikhar, tell me, in the work that Search for Justice does, that also includes work that you've done with prison staff about children's rights in prison. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, in fact, we conducted some orientation session for the prison staff and the senior prison staff in collaboration with the National Academy for Prisons Administration, NAPA, that is based in Lahore. I mean, that academy is located in Lahore.
How do children end up in prison?
In fact, because we have a Juvenile Justice System Act 2018, which was enacted in 2018. So if a child commits some we call it like some offense, in some cases, the children are sentenced to jail and some other punishments by the court as well. So our objective to interact with the prison people was that if they are like handling the children, so how should they handle?
Yes,
Although
quite
under
right.
the law or under the legal framework, the children should not be kept in the typical jails.
Yes.
Under the law, it is again, because the implementation of the law again is the entire responsibility of the government. And this is also another domain which is like requiring huge attention by the government, because under the Juvenile Justice System Act, police cannot like keep the children at the police station. It is the responsibility of the police to immediately inform the guardian and the probation officer right after the arrest of the child. The child, for the investigation purpose, will not be kept in the jurisdiction of the police.
Okay.
The child must be kept in the observation home. But still, there is no observation home established in any part of the country.
What?
So
there's a requirement, but there's no actual place for them to go to. Wow. Yes, please continue.
And under the law, the children should be sent to the correction center if they are like awarded sentence by the court in a special circumstances. So they should be sent in a correction center.
Right.
I mean, and the objective of the authorities of the correction center should be the rehabilitation of the child, educating the child, equipping him or her with technical vocational skills, providing him or her counseling. So the child, after completing that period, must be reintegrated in the society.
Yes,
but unfortunately,
absolutely.
still there are a lot of actions are required to implement that particular law. And just because this program is like focusing the overall Pakistan situation, so I would just like to add into this, like the Punjab is the only province who has a specific law, the Punjab Domestic Workers Act 2019, which says that no child under the age of 15 will be employed as domestic worker. But still, the Sindh, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Balochistan, they don't have that kind of legal provision. And recently, the federal government in Islamabad Capital Territory, the cabinet approved an amendment in the Employment of Children Act, proposing or recommending to the Interior Ministry for including child domestic labor in the list of hazardous occupation for the children.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there is a need of a comprehensive legislation in the whole country.
Yes.
Although the matter of child labor or child domestic labor is a provincial matter after 18th constitutional amendment in Constitution of Pakistan back in 2010.
But one is hoping that now there is a precedent and other provinces will follow, because there does seem to be an increasing awareness that children and their protection and their rights is in fact an extremely important priority, or it should be at least, for all provincial governments. So Iftikhar, can you also tell me a little bit about the work that Search for Justice does in terms of trafficking? Because I also read a little bit about that, and I was just sort of curious, are children being trafficked?
Yeah, because even Sarah again can tell you, because Child Protection and Welfare Bureau also rescued few children who were like trafficked. Because when you describe the term of trafficking, so it is defined in two ways. Number one, the international trafficking, which is usually considered as trafficking. Like a child is trafficked from Pakistan to some other. I mean, it is called cross-border trafficking.
Right. Do you find, what's the gender ratio for the children, for example, beggars on the street that you rescue, or destitute children that you rescue? Are there more boys? Are there more girls? Do more boys get rehabilitated or reunited with their families than boys? Is there a sort of
So the newborn infants that we rescued, majority are girls in that. 90% girls, 10% boys. But the child beggars that we see on the streets who are above 3 years old, they're mostly boys that we get. Beggars, children, and boys are used for that. And also rehabilitate, when you talk about that, of course, that's done in the same ratio. Boys and girls, both are rehabilitated, but we get more boys, Infants are more girls, but grown-ups, a little more grown-up.
Slightly older children
they're boys, yes.
So, you know, in instances of unification, where you find a child's family, and even if, does it happen that families don't want that child back?
This hasn't happened in my since I've joined.
I was like, I hope it's
Thank
not true.
God, all bad things are not happening, something good also. But I mean, we've seen cases where a deaf and dumb child was, misplaced, and we got him, and he belonged to Sawabi in KP. Now that doesn't come under our jurisdiction, but he was found on Lahore motorway. We got him from there. He has been living in the bureau since 12 years. He had been living in the bureau since 12 years. And because he could not speak, we couldn't understand, and our family tracing section, despite all efforts, failed in tracing his parents. After 12 years, again we started this exercise, and somehow through sign language and stuff, got to know a name of a place which he wrote. You know, and then that place did not exist. When we checked on Google Map in Pakistan, that place did not exist.
Because
then,
it was so tiny and remote.
Yes, and then we changed the letters of that place. We found a place. Then we found a place which was in Sawabi, KP. You know, and then we contacted the authorities there. They told us that yes, there's a family who has had a missing child, and then we WhatsApped his picture to them. They came all the way from Sawabi, KP. And that, I cannot even tell you how rewarding that part, emotional that scene was when we handed over the boy to them. And now the boy has gone after 12 years. And he was deaf and dumb.
Oh my gosh, I'm not getting goosebumps, but of sort of like, happy goosebumps.
So there's such success stories, and you feel amazing when these things happen. And I try my best that the missing children I have, at least I can do something to get them back. Because I watched, when I joined the bureau, something that made me really upset was just this: I couldn't sleep for nights. Just knowing the fact that you have children who are missing, and what their parents must be feeling, what they must be feeling, it's terrible. Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the legal support that the bureau provides for children? Because you mentioned that you have a court. Yes. In the bureau.
Yes.
So what kind of things does the court do?
Okay, so we have sections mentioned in our PDNC Act. Okay, so for example, if a child is in unauthorized custody, he's living
what's that?
So that unauthorized custody means if he's with somebody they're not his parents or relatives, and he's been forcefully, living,
so almost like kidnapped.
Yes, kidnapping.
Sort of like kidnapping.
Yeah, kidnapping, or even child domestic labor violence. I mean, if they're working somewhere without their will, against their will, even that comes into that. So that's section 34 of the PDNC Act, for example. Right. Then there are sections on beggary, anti-beggary, child beggary. Yes, that's a crime. There's a punishment. There's a law proper, which is in our Act. So we intervene in those cases also. Then there's child abuse. Child sexual abuse, or somebody's enticed to do that, even that comes under us.
Right, groomed.
Yes, and drug abuse also, even that. So these crimes fall under our jurisdiction, and then we can intervene legally and take action upon it.
Oh, so does that mean that then you can, sue parents or sue those guardians and sort of, or even break up gangs?
Yes.
That must be quite scary.
Yes, we busted a gang, of 4 members.
Oh my God.
And they used to place children at different signals. So we got them arrested with the police. By the way, police are our partners, and they play a very important role with us. They go with us in all the rescue activities. We even got threats. I also got threats after getting this gang arrested, because of course that's their bread and butter, And
it is true then. It is true that a lot of children who are begging are actually in organized.
It's an organized crime, Bikul. It's an organized network, and they place children in the morning at signals, and they pick them up in the evenings, and whatever money they collected, that's their business. Yes.
Because, sometimes one feels that maybe this one isn't in a sort of, a crime gang, and maybe they're legit and you want to give them some money. So
yeah, I'm sure some are legit, but I mean it's very difficult to differentiate between the two. Yes, it's best not to give them any money. I would request everybody, Mina, they should not give them any money. If you want to help them, bring them to the bureau or take them to any other shelter home and provide them education. Don't give them any cash, because that only encourages them and their parents also who are behind this.
So the helpline covers all of these things.
Yes.
So if you see something, you see a child in danger, if you feel like, someone is, like your neighbor is beating their
torture
maid,
case, yes.
Or if you feel like someone is being harmed. And this isn't just for, let's say, the house help. This is for any child.
Any child whose rights are being violated. And I have this different way of working. I don't strictly stick to the law and book, because I feel that it's our responsibility, social responsibility, legal responsibility, moral responsibility also. So I intervene in cases which don't just come in my law. Like I also go, beyond that.
Extra mile.
Should. We should, because nobody else is doing it, and we have to do it. Because these children are our responsibility. So we go there, we intervene in those cases also. Yes.
It's an incredibly complex and incredibly important work that you and Iftikhar are doing. And thank you so much for being on the show to talk about all of these myriad aspects of things. And I think like we've only really scratched the surface, which is sort of both good and bad.
Your show is so amazing, Veena. Yeah, it's different from the others.
You know,
it's fun.
This is why we got you here in person. So thank you guys for watching the show. I would like to reiterate that the Child Protection Bureau's helpline is 1121. It's a 24-hour helpline. Anybody can call. This is not a class-based issue. The helpline is not just for low-income kids or for house help. It is for all children from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of class backgrounds. So it's a really sort of equal stakes helpline. If you feel like any child is in any kind of danger, you can call the helpline. And it's a service that's available. It's a service that is obviously very much proactively working for kiddos. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share this because some shows I feel are more important than others because this is the kind of information that we all need to know as responsible citizens and as caregivers and as people who have children in our lives in some capacity or another. As adults, it's our job to look out for kids. Pretty basic, actually. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on the coffee table. Bye now.